Good afternoon, jammers, and welcome to the Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Music Museum's second edition of Groundation 2023. At this stage, I'm inviting us all to stand and acknowledge our national anthem. With our patriotism acknowledged, I just want to thank all of you for your continued support of this program, and that with your support we endeavor to increase its value as much as we can. In the meantime, may I urge you all, because our dilemma here is to not preach to the converted, but to somehow bring younger high school, tertiary Jamaicans here, so as we interrogate the sort of questions we pose, and using music and the arts and culture as a sort of method to decipher some of the issues at hand that I think more of our young citizens should be here to help us along the way, and at the same time be informed by the experiences we have had. With that said, I will waste no more time but to invite Miss Elaine Wint, who has been with Groundation. Yeah, you can clap her. Just the mention of her name carries that weight. Elaine has been a supporter of Groundation from its inception. And of course, we all know the wealth of information that she brings to broadcasting and being an MC. Elaine is a last-minute stand-in, and by this, most of you know that I like to use cricket analogies since it's the game I'm most passionate about in terms of sports. Actually, let me restate that. When it used to be cricket, the long-form game where you had to deal with like a chess game, it was my favorite game. But since it has become backyard cricket, bat up and catch, I only listen to the score and wish that our teams could make better scores. But in cricket, we have what we call the 12th man. Now that ladies are doing much better than some of us guys at cricket, we call it a 12th person, or a batter, for example. So the 12th man's role will be played by Elaine. But a 12th man is very important. That person has to be a good all-arounder, good batsman, good batter, good bowler, excellent fielder. And that's why I called on my dear friend, Elaine Wint. Miss Wint, it's all yours.
Hi. How wanna do? Boy. So I just get to acknowledge that this is one of my favorite places. Hi, darling, Jessica. Good to see you. So the place is filled, as usual, with loves of my life and people that I feel strongly about. And yes, Leah Kim, we get to talk a little bit later on. But in introducing this process today, I want to just take a short excerpt from the program that says, this year's program will examine the socio-political, creative, and artistic response to developments and their consequences since Jamaica gained independence. The approach will assist us in understanding the public dimensions and political function of music. Interesting, eh? How many of us think of the political dimensions and political function of our music? The genesis of the country's successes and unachieved goals, the underutilization of its tremendous national potential, and the spate of crime the island endures will be examined through reasoning punctuated by musical references. Love that. The methodology, it is hoped, will stimulate future thoughts, facilitate research, encourage action. You hear that, Pat? Oh, no, no, too old feet. Encourage action, or how we can achieve complete political independence and improve the current horrendous conditions in Jamaica. Well, that one touched me, and I thought in the touching it was important to share, because I want to encourage us, because I know that Herbie's passion for Groundation is not just to have us all come and sit and listen and enjoy, but to be stimulated into activating our sole purpose as it relates to Jamaica's development, and to ask ourselves to give up the smallness of I'm not good enough, or I'm not important enough, or I don't have the position that allows me, to be challenged to know that each and every one of us in this room has a capacity to lead, to encourage, to promote, to stimulate, to educate. You just have to choose which one is yours, because you know from your heart that it is yours. So I'm grateful that Herbie has been steadfast in answering the call of his heart, and in doing that, how much it has given us the possibility of our own checking our souls and coming to a greater alignment with our purpose. I say that in the context that for most part, the Groundation audience has been mostly persons, I would say, over 40. Not too many people in the room under that, although I know there are one or two. And so the question is, what are you designing as your last lick? Yes, sir. What are you designing as your last lick? And make sure you lick it out of the park. Don't hold back. Don't stinge up. Don't go on and go on like you're not good enough and you can't do it. Just hit it out of the park. Because these last few months, we have been made to appreciate that the time is short. Because we have seen a literal exodus of some of our most acclaimed, noteworthy, loved performers on every level of Jamaican life. The time is always available, but you have got to take the time. Thank you. Thank you. So I am deeply honored to stand in for George Davis, who is caught at some airport somewhere trying to make the flight to get here and unable to. And maybe it is divine destiny that I can therefore stand in his place, and I give thanks for that. So today we're talking about fire burning, music, governance, and dance. What a combination. Fire burning, music, governance, and dance. So I'm very intrigued at how Herbie selected the panel for this. So it's a panel now, right, Herbie? So I'm going to invite them to come up one by one. And so I will do it as it's listed in the program. Leakim Samaj, love him to death. President and Chief Ideator of Above and Beyond, transformational psychologist, public scholar, talk show host, newspaper columnist from time to time, graduate of Cornell, Rutgers, and UWI, as well as the College of Agriculture. You didn't know Sam did run a sound system named Judgment? Yeah, owner and selector. And a member of the Not Guilty band, but you did guilty. You did guilty, Leakim. Sit down. Sit down. Thank you for joining us. It is our pleasure to have you on our panel. But if you think I did love you, I love this one more. So I don't know, you just have to get over it. Prof, stop, take picture, your turn. Professor Clinton Hutton of the Department of Government of the University of the West Indies. And this, ladies and gentlemen, you know, when I read about people like Imhotep and all of the great Renaissance people who, they had 7 professions, 7 capacities, 8 and 9. So here is a scholar, a public intellectual, a photographer, a painter, interdisciplinary artist, an oral historian and researcher, and I forget some of them. And I just love how his expansion allows that to come to whatever he is contributing in the power of his words, and we look forward to that. So next is the junior on the team, is it? Let me look, I've lost my place. Yes, no, maybe Cardell older than her, I don't know. Maybe, just by a little. Donna Hope, Professor of Culture, Gender, and Society at the University of the West Indies. Researcher, author, sociocultural commentator, Fulbright scholar. You look at her and you say, how is it possible you could have had 27 years at the University of the West Indies? You lie. Huh? But here she is, a stout promoter of all that is Jamaican music, and in particular, the dance hall genre. Welcome. Finally, but by no means the least, my brethren, brother, from long-time days, attorney and executive director of the Broadcasting Commission, vice chairman of UNESCO's program Information for All, IFA, and a man who is passionate about standards and qualities and capacities. Please welcome Cordell Green. So I guess by the fact that him just step up, that's supposed to say him are the younger one. Clap him. Clap him. Okay. So how it is going to go, friends, is that each one of the presenters will be asked to give a general overview, statement, position, thought on the subject that we are discussing today: fire burning, music governance, and dance. And so we're going to start from the immediate left. They forgot my chair, don't feel no way. We're starting from the left with Leah Kim and then coming right along the semicircle through Clinton, Donna, and Cordell. So each person doing 5 minutes of commentary, and then we'll get into a discussion, and that will be followed, of course. I don't see the microphones in the audience, but I'm sure they will be handed to you so you can ask your questions at the end. Leah Kim, would you begin, please? If you would feel more comfortable here, please feel free to come up, or you can use your microphone.
Yeah, more energy generated when you stand. Listen, man. You see, the last time I was in this room was when I'm part of the management team of the KC choir, and we got the Musgrave medal. So I had to wear it again, you know? All right? Two kinds of people in Jamaica: those who went to KC and those who wish they did. Eh? Right, boss? All right. I was asked to take a look at the ideological issues as they came together in the 70s. Very important decade. Now, for me, Jamaica 1970 ideological was built on, the apex was built on two columns. Column one, the cultural column, took us from Marcus Garvey. And by the way, just imagine the voice of Chronics. If a me one with pants, if a me one, we have to remind Jamaica, said this month represents 100 years since the publication of the philosophy and opinion of Marcus Garvey. Went unnoticed. February, 100 years ago. And we named Marcus our first national hero and have abandoned him since then. Anyway, the book is outside there, for those of you who don't have it. It's a required in every Jamaican's home. All right? Little agenda. Column one is built on Marcus. And that column takes us from Marcus through Rasta to Marley. Column two is a socio-political column built on Michael Manley. So those two columns came together as such, creating an apex and an apogee. The first word came was apogee, but some people don't understand the word apogee, but I figure both work together. Apex into apogee, because apogee is like the highest point of a satellite. Huh? So if you start out as apex and you get to apogee, you're going with things. Now, Marcus created a cultural space over 100 years ago, folks. And into that space, or out of that space, Rastafari emerged. It's in Marcus' book. Look to Africa where a king shall be crowned, and then you know the day of deliverance is at hand. That was the rallying cry out of which Rastafari emerged and built and grew. Manley created a socio-political space within which Rasta and Marley flourished. Now, we can divide Jamaicans' time span into three categories for me. The first category is, first from 1930 to 1970, the damn Rasta them. Remember those days? Everything the damn Rasta them. Coral Gardens and all the associated things. Huh? But interestingly, 1970 to 1981, I call that phrase, guess who dread? Some of you are old enough to remember, guess who picked the ton Rasta? Guess where we relax, so guess who dread? And that was just an outward manifestation of what was happening internally. The third period, post-1981, I define it as, guess who trim? Now, why was this so? In contemporary times, the most common interface between music and culture and politics occurred around elections. The politicians temporarily bridged this gap to get the people to vote for them. 1971, Max Romer, Let the Power Fall and I, and Delroy Wilson, Better Must Come, were the two songs co-opted. 1989, Flower Gun, We Run Things, Things No Run We. But then Pinchers, The Return of the Dawn. Remember that? Pinchers' song, The Return of the Dawn. They weren't pulling no punches. Jump to 1993, the parties used Nadine Sutherland, Action. Huh? And then Dirt's Man, coming in hot this year. Most times without the consent of the artist, which put the artist in some serious position. Now, this interface, in the 1960s, Jamaica was hostile territory for things black. Things black and Rasta worse. Coral Gardens, Buster's classic statement, which I say never say it, bringing all Rastas dead or alive, who the jail can't hold, the morgues will. Remember the banning of books under Hugh Shearer? It's alleged that even Black Beauty was banned. Them say, well, boss, me no want about it, so say alleged. All right? Walter Radney declared persona non grata because of his grounding with the people. All right? Now, interestingly, the dialectical process brought a complete transformation. Dialectics, we're talking, thesis gives rise to antithesis, but you work it through, you get to a new synthesis. In the 1970s, Michael Manley and the PNP created a new cultural space which defined Jamaica as anti-imperialist, non-aligned, and moving towards self-determination. I mean, I allege this, all right? The cultural space was very fertile and supported the growth of fresh musical concepts and the upliftment of the Afrocentric perspective. Mali evolved into this space and became the national and international symbol of resistance against oppression. Mali's influence now fed back into Michael Manley. This is what Michael Manley had to say about Bob Marley. And I may share something here that a lot of people probably have forgotten. Robert Nesta Marley, Order of Merit, superstar, father, and definitive exponent of reggae, was a Rastafarian. He had taken that journey. By that act, he has solved his identity crisis. He had become a complete human being. In his completeness, he could sing songs of compassion, no woman, no cry. He could spit revolutionary defiance, war. He could embrace proletarian internationalism, Zimbabwe. And he could do it all with an unconscious conviction that made him a kind of spontaneous, uncompromising revolutionary, untouched by wealth, unfailingly generous, and eternally unspoiled. Again, this is Manley's statement. I first knew Bob Marley in 1971, in the days of Trenchtown Rock. At this stage, his music was visceral protests carried on the wings of a relatively uncomplicated commentary on the ghetto. Throughout that year, he used to perform as part of a group of artists who traveled all over Jamaica with me as the party, which I led, prepared for the general elections of 1972. How many remember that? That was the foundation of the Marley's popularity. He was the opening act for Manley's speech. That's where it started. Until that time, my own political perception had reflected a mutually reinforcing marriage. On the one hand, there was the political theory which I had absorbed from my father as a youth and had developed into explicit socialist doctrine as a student at the university. On the other hand, was some 20 years as an organizer and negotiator Jamaica trade union movement. To this now was added a vital and new ingredient. I could never pretend that the lyrics of the protest music, which were the driving motivation of reggae, taught me things that I did not know. From an intellectual point of view, they were confirmatory of all that I believed and have struggled against as a trade unionist. But I had not myself been born in the ghetto and was not personally part of it. Reggae music influenced me profoundly by deepening the elements of emotional comprehension. Now we understand why Bob Marley was shot. December 3rd, 1976, and no one was ever arrested, charged, or convicted for that. So the 70s, again, was that space. 2 columns. The first one, Marcus. The second one, Manly. Definitive ideological perspective and position on Jamaica for the first time. Mali emerged into that, and the vision has spread to the rest of the world. That shaped the 70s, musically and socially. I'll stop right here.
Not getting any juice from mine, so moving right along, I'm going to ask Professor Clinton Houghton to share his thoughts on this with us.
Brothers and sisters, good afternoon. Let me first say that I completely in support of Leah Kim's opening batting. Completely in support. And I'll try not to repeat some of the things that he has said. Safe to say that Jamaica, during the last period of colonialism, entered into a profound cultural revolution. That cultural revolution was spawned by the Rastafarian movement, which led into 1938 and into the 1950s with the sound system, and you know what happened after that. And in independence, 1962, after 468 years of foreign rule. And the music that developed coming out of the sound system really, if taken into the meaning which it exuded, we would have probably been doing better now. Our musicians, our lyricists, they have produced a most profound body of work of a political and philosophical nature, more than any other group of persons in the country. And that body of work talks about what path or what should constitute independence. Starting with the Scatterlights. Justin Hines, we should never forget him. He's a precursor to Marley et al. Justin Hines. But let us take one of Marley's, in fact, the Wailers' song, Catch a Fire. In Catch a Fire, and taking off from Garvey and that ancestral roots of ours, in Catch a Fire, it says, every time I hear the crack of the whip, my blood runs cold. I remember on the slave ship how they brutalize our very soul. Today, they say, we are free, only to be chained in poverty. By the way, the youngest leader of the Paul Bogle movement in 1865, James McLaren, 23 years old, born after emancipation, made a speech in 1865, August, which said pretty much the same thing. So, what our musicians were able to do was to link independence to ancestry. And the extent to which we are not free is the extent to which we are still in slavery. That is the way it came out in the songs. That is how it was in Catch a Fire. But also in Catch a Fire, as in a number of other songs, this philosophy linking our future to ancestry. When Marley says, and the Wailers says, written by Marley, when it says, every time I hear the crack of the whip, the Wailers was not there at the time. But what it is saying, I am my ancestors, and my ancestors are me. That's what they are saying. I am my ancestors, and my ancestors are me. So the link between ancestry, between Africa, Jamaica, and independence was fairly much central to the philosophy that was developed in Jamaican popular music, 1962 to 1982. And there are others. Now, I will add to Leakim and Garvey, because it is our musicians through Rastafari who brought the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey to independent Jamaican society. What I will add is that Garveyism is the closest thing that we have to a national philosophy. Sadly enough, we do not use it. It was Walter Rodney who said we took home the bones, but not his philosophy. Right? And it is still the case. Making some breakthroughs now. It's now being taught in basic schools in Jamaica since last year. Right? Through the efforts of persons not necessarily not connected to the ministry. And that is a lesson in itself. That we have to apply our agency to ensure that the education that we delivered is one that would make our students and young people sovereign learners in the first place, the ability to teach themselves to learn, since we cannot get everything from the formal system, because the formal system is to a great extent still mired in colonial epistemology. And therefore, they have to learn, as Peter Touch says, to search and to find, as he said in Mama Africa. Right? Now, this is the contribution of Jamaican music, Jamaican musicians, Jamaican lyricists, to what could be possible in charting a path of sovereignty, freedom, and justice. That is it. And yet, it was those people whose songs were banned in the 1960s. It was those people who were set upon by the police like Joe Williams. I have interviewed a number of pioneering sound system operators, musicians, and people who go to dance, and they can tell you what took place. Because although we are out of many one, in fact, at independence in 1962, Emancipation Day was discontinued by our independence government. We need to understand that. But guess what? Ordinary folks never abandon Emancipation Day, and our music never abandoned it. And that is the beauty of Jamaican music. And we have developed what I would call some philosophical kings in our music. The two Bobs, Bob Andy and Bob Marley. Peter Tosh, Bonnie Whaler, Burning Spear. And and what I'll do later, because I can't stop here now, what I'll do later, I want to read some parts of lyrics to you. Because when you hear it, you can't believe the profundity of these statements. It is my understanding of these that led me to develop a course for second-year students at UWI on Jamaican music as philosophical and political text. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Clinton Houghton. So we're pushing right along to ensure that we have as much discussion as possible. So I'm going to now ask Professor Donna Hope if she would come to the podium.
Thank you so much, Elaine, and of course, thanks to my two friends and colleagues who went before and who set a kind of framework and foundation for my intervention into this afternoon's opening remarks. And I, of course, want to thank Herbie Miller and the team, the Groundation team, Rosemary, and everyone who has put this together. It's another year, and I'm grateful to be here in the real to be sharing with others. Now, my work covers several areas: culture, gender, social activity, and other parts of the Jamaican landscape, and grounded through an analysis of music texts, especially dancehall music. And one of the things I want to put at the forefront of this discussion, this room has many individuals who are from the same era. I teach students, still teach, insist on teaching students who are 19 to 23 years old. And I do this very deliberately because this is also a part of my ongoing research to understand how our young people are being culturalized in Jamaica and in the region. And my courses also get a lot of international students, some of them doing the master's and PhD levels, because they have an interest in Jamaican culture. So there are two courses I built in the department in which I teach, the Institute of Caribbean Studies. One is called Culture, Gender, and Sexuality in Jamaican Popular Music, and students are introduced to a range of information about Jamaican music, because most of them have never heard of it before, even though they have now advanced to the university and are at the final year stage. So I bring them from the music on the plantation coming forward to the contemporary era, and I also take them on a field trip into the music spaces. So Yvonne is going to come with us again on one of our field trips. Yvonne, we're going to Reggae Wednesdays and Weddy Weddy, because again, this is how, yes man, Yvonne comes with us and other people do come with us, other people are visiting and otherwise. Why do we do this? Because, for example, the conversation that we are having here, and from my perspective, we are talking about three very connected areas of Jamaican life and culture. We're talking about music, dance, and governance. And I would put it in this way: governance, dance, and music, in the way that they came together and influenced each other to provide, in a lot of ways, narratives that help us to understand how the society has formed itself, and what are some of the kind of relationships that exist, the interrelationships that exist culturally and socially amongst these three variables. And so my work has used quite significantly a lot of conversations around social class. Jamaica is a very rigidly classed society, so we are having a conversation, for example, about dons, and we all understand which part of the social structures dons come from. They are usually from the working classes, and we are also having a conversation about gender, because in all three of these areas, they are all significantly overpopulated by men. So we are having a conversation that is very male-centric. Dons generally are male. I've never really met a female don. Maybe an area leader, but I've never met a female don. We have heard of the donette, but not really. Always men. And usually, when a lot of these, you are agreeing with me, right? All right. And usually, when these men are, moving around the different locations that are important to them, they are followed or supported or protected by a big group of men. So in dancehall, we call this mantourage. That is the term utilized in dancehall culture, because also the artists who themselves see them, as a kind of little don in the music, also have their mantourages. Large groups of men, you see some of them on stage shows where the stage is sometimes overpopulated with male energy. Some people up there just holding a flag. We wonder why. And so my work also borrows a lot from Carl Stone's work. I have a Master's of Philosophy in Political Science and taught in the Department of Government for 6 years before going off to do a PhD. And from that experience, I pulled together a conversation around how are Jamaican lives and the culture and the music borrowing from different spaces. So Carl Stone's work on patron clientelism explained for us very carefully how dons developed. What was the relationship between the patron at the higher level, the political leaders, and the clients on the lower level, whom they pull into these structures as enforcers, providing them with resources from the government structures. And then, as the history shows us, the music tells us, when things changed and the narco culture brought itself here from Colombia, particularly, not the nice green ganja that we wanted to look at, but the white lady, the music talks about it. Then many of these men in the main were pulled away from the political structures, and we had a lot of trauma happening, particularly in the 80s when people like myself were coming to an understanding of themselves. We understand the networks and how they were created, and it feeds back into the music, because it is going into the inner cities and the working class communities. And in a lot of ways, it is impacting on the ways that young men see themselves, young men imagine themselves, and young men identify the best ways to develop and to seek a sense of social mobility. It is an impacting kind of phenomena that has carried itself forward into this era in which we live. And so my work on dancehall culture, and I still do a lot of work on dancehall culture, looks very forcefully, for example, at where are these socialization patterns coming from. Is the music social commentary, or is it impacting on people? Is there a chicken and egg kind of conversation? And Cordell and I sometimes have back and forth conversations about this, because in a lot of ways, for example, I remember when Bounty Killer's song Anytime came out, I was a graduate student teaching in the Department of Government. And my students at that time, doing a course on Caribbean political thought, I decided that we would look at dancehall music as a kind of cultural philosophy from the ground. Clinton was also in the department at that time. And so we analyzed, this is in the 1990s, 1996 or 7. Was it 99? No, I wasn't there. 1999, right. We analyzed Anytime as socio-political text, trying to understand why this song meant so much and why it was being banned. And I'd like to put into the mix that this society has a long history of banning music. Since 1950s, when our first music form, Mentor, came into the network, my students are introduced to this material, there has always been this understanding that some music is seen as viable and valuable and others are not. And so we were still under Crown Colony government, and a set of music, including one called Night Food by Alert Bedesi and that group, was taken along with others to the House of Representatives because it was seen as deleterious to the morals of children and having an impact. in terms of harming their morals. This, of course, is long before the music made its way into the formal media structures, because this society spent a long time privileging music of foreign extract over and above the locally produced songs, even the ones my colleagues have spoken about. These were consumed in the main by people inside of other enclaves. They were never seen as seemly. They were never seen as appropriate. They were never seen as valuable forms of cultural output. But in today's Jamaica, we speak about them as if they were. The society has changed quite significantly, and so the conversations about what music does and the conversations about how it connects to ideas of governance and the issue of dons and donship is a multifaceted one. And for me, and for the conversations we continue to have with the research, and especially with the younger people that we are trying to reach, is one that really should pull a lot of these facets together so that we understand, for example, why even in today's conversations in the music, young men in the main are still connecting themselves to discourses about the gun. What does it mean? How does it solidify and symbolize and legitimize their identity in the places they come from? And why do they see these things as legitimate and legitimated? They see men who have worked their way through these variables being empowered, being given resources and access to resources of all kinds, money, contracts, nubile bodies, male and female, and being able to be seen as powerful in this society that we continue to try and work through to ensure that all of us can live and work in a safe society that is one that we all want to continue staying in. Thank you so much.
Wow. It's a lot for us to think about. I'm particularly present, Donna, to the shift when the politicians stopped issuing guns and began to issue cocaine so that the young men could make some money for themselves and not have to be shutters. But then where did that lead? Where did that lead? A lot of underlying issues, a lot of things about us while being Jamaicans that we think we know. I think one of the things this conversation will help to liberate for everyone in the room today is that, was it Leakim who said, you have to teach yourself. You have, as Clinton said, be willing to become researchers. This thing where you sit and expect the media or the newspapers or somebody else's book to tell you, it ain't gonna happen because the agendas are very tightly wrapped. Clinton, thank you so much. Donna, Leakim, and now to, what's your name again, young boy? I just like to trouble people that I love. Cordell Green, please.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I find myself in the invidious position of being on a panel with a renowned psychologist and musicologist, a renowned social scientist and musicologist, a renowned cultural scholar and musicologist with an irresistibly beautiful brain. And I, a lawyer and a state regulator, should add something of value. That's a tall order. Plus, you know, I got some very subtle licks there. So the point of departure for me are the words of a lyricist who said, words make you think a thought, and a song makes you feel a thought. So lyrics can be, and in my experience about Jamaica in particular, lyrics can be poems about who we were, who we are, who we have become, and who we are becoming. I place weight on a perspective offered by Carolyn Cooper, her perspective on one genre, dancehall music. In Slackness Hiding from Culture, she says, and I quote, dancehall music is not mere entertainment, but ideological weaponry disturbing the peace, end of quote. That's a form of fire burning, my interpretation. Lyrics being an outlet for the release of pent-up hostility, a kind of catharsis theory. But we also know that lyrics can be more than just an internal narrative or reflection. It can be intentional influence. The artist can choose to promote, incite, or instruct with a view to anything and everything, including purposefully debasing or abusing, extolling stigma, misogynism, sexual exploitation, sexual violence, gratuitous depiction of drugs, criminality, any other form of antisocial behavior, even when the primary purpose is for entertainment and enjoyment, the consequences, often unwittingly, can be to normalize hostility and mute what should be normal public outrage and disgust. The result, when we sugarcoat that reality, is a systematic undervaluing of life and individual worth. And it is in that type of environment that gunmanship thrives, metastasizing across the entire body politic, as we're seeing. And we know, based on our experience in Jamaica, that tendency, however, does not have to be sustained. That deserves a shout. That tendency does not have to be sustained. It can be subverted. It can be subverted. It can be subverted not by emotional outbursts and speeches. It can be subverted by digital media and information literacy, which is very low in this country, despite the outbursts, very low. And it can be subverted as well by music education if they are elevated to being core components of the basic entitlement to freedom of expression and cultural rights. As Bob Marley has said, music gonna teach them one lesson. So I keep my hubris in check. I don't claim expertise on these subjects, but I claim from Mahatma Gandhi and adapt his words and would say, the test for all of us in Jamaica, the test after we pass over the sophistry, it is to recall each time we have this kind of debate, recall the face of the poorest and weakest and most vulnerable Jamaican and ask about all lyrics we are contemplating, whether the lyrics in question are going to be of any use to that Jamaican. Will that Jamaican gain anything by it? Will it restore him or her to to a control over her own life and destiny? The answer is binary. It can only be negative or positive. So in summary, what I'm saying is that the indisputable fact about our music, beyond question, is that it is powerful. It evokes emotions. When we say burn a fire, we don't need to go beyond that. But like all forms of power, it can be misused to get people to accept a demeaned, devalued identity. It's not only the lyrics themselves, but often the context in which they are portrayed, which can make a difference in whether we are learning about something or learning to be something. That is the polemic that faces a regulator such as myself. And that's why sometimes we have to burn out some of the people who like to burn out. Thank you.
Yeah. Check. No juice still. Still no juice. Okay. All right, I'll just do it from here. Can you check your microphones for me, everyone, that they're live?
Testing.
Leah Kim, have you checked yours? Clinton, yeah,
Testing,
that's
testing.
good.
One,
Leah
two.
Kim.
Testing. Testing.
All right, so a lot has been shared, and
Testing.
I'm just going to have us get into a little wider conversation, meaning the panelists can actually respond to each other and add the things that you were not able to say in the opening conversation. So who would like to start at this point? Having reflected, Donna, I see you. No? You're checking the mic.
Yes, testing.
All right. Leah Kim, you want to go? So a lot has been shared about self-acceptance and that role that it plays in independence. But when I was hearing that, friends, what I was making it a lot more personal. So it's not just about the country. Because how can you work to liberate a nation if you yourself personally have not gotten through self-acceptance and your own independence? Yes.
Let me just add briefly, based on what I've heard from the other panelists, it's one of those introduce not a construct, you know. So we talk about feelings, thoughts, and behavior, right? But before you get to feelings, there's something called emotions. Emotions are not the same thing as feelings. Physiologically, emotions are expressions from the body. It is data that the body emits. But largely, we are emotionally illiterate, meaning that we don't have the language to interpret what we're experiencing. The musicians and our artists are the ones that help us with emotional literacy, to channel it, to process it, so we can, so that's what it is. Raw emotions. Now depends on how they direct it. We can now process it in terms of thought. And interestingly, what happens, that gap between feeling and thought, it can actually override the prefrontal cortex so that the behavior becomes totally disrupted. So that we owe a lot to our musicians and artists who provide us with that lyrical oftentimes when I teach even things like
1, 2.
communication, I challenge students that it's almost impossible for us to describe a beautiful black woman without alluding to Caucasian connotations, because the language conceptually incarcerates us. So when Gregory will describe her, but she wasn't in the front row, but she's a student in my class. You understand what is being communicated? I mean, she's not in the top 10, but she's still on the charts. Eh? Oh, I love her like cook food. Is what we're trying to do? No, what? Be careful of the stoopies now. Stoopies can be dangerous. So you see that interface, how unfortunately our intelligentsia was not providing that tool. And it was our artists and our musicians who provided us with the tools to decode what we were experiencing, so we could now convert it to feelings, so it could actually inform our thoughts and ultimately our action. And I still insist that that apex was the 70s.
So I see Clinton leaning forward.
No, I'm just enjoying the points he's making.
Check.
It's clear that, and I've always advocated, that we need to find our own language to express our own aspirations and our own path. We cannot fully use the language of the oppressor to articulate our feelings, our sense of beauty, and all the things that Yakim is saying. We have to find a different language for that.
Can I add a comment here?
Overstand.
Okay, and I'd like to add a comment
Overstanding.
here. Thanks, Clinton. That I gather we are being streamed on YouTube Live. So we are being streamed live on YouTube, and so there are people watching us. And I just got a comment from Professor Caroline Cooper. I was WhatsApping her, so I'll respond to that comment in a minute. But one of the things I'd like to add, which I teach my students in my class, is that the conversations that we are having about the society in which we live today, our society is the one we are living in today, was not formed deliberately and directly from what happened in the 50s and 60s. Those are antecedents. This society today, 2023, is a clear resultant of what happened in Jamaica in the 1980s. And so the legacy of the 80s is sitting on top of us. My students do not have a clue about what happened in the 80s. There are no books written about it. And so I show them Stephanie Black's Life and Death, which, even while it's a commentary on the impact of structural adjustment under the World Bank and IMF on a country that was not prepared at all for those conditionalities, because they were never developed for a third world country, but it gives them a better understanding of the Jamaica that they inherited, their 20s and 19 and all of that, than a lot of the conversations that we are trying to introduce them to, which are behind that. And so we have to be clear on what we are suggesting to the young people, many of who are absent today, but may be able to look at this, because I know we are being recorded and also streamed, so they can see the information. This Jamaica in 2023, 1980, was 43 years ago. And so we have to be very clear. I was a child in 1980, a poor child, and there was a lot of sufferation that was put on the backs of working class people because of the things that happened when the government was asked to reduce central government's activities. In a lot of areas, people were left to starve to death. A lot of things were moved, subsistence was changed, the university had to impose a cess. All of these things happened around that time. And the hospitals were changed, all of these things were changed. And so the young people have been looking through this and trying to understand for themselves, why are we here today and how do we move forward? What are the opportunities for us as citizens? Where are the symbols and the images that we should hold on to? Where do we go back to find them?
Well, I would say to young people that Jamaica, like any other society, never operates in stasis. We evolve. What I find perplexing is very often when we point to the comparators, the measures, very often loss of Jamaicans, the United States of America, we sugarcoat the experience of that country. We don't talk about the barbarianism in their civil war that has led them to where they are today. Exploitative external policies that has supported the economy that is existing today. But I also say that we embrace the fact that we were given a bad card from the start. I mean, Professor Hilary Beckles has done a very good exposition on this. A very bad start. You don't need to go beyond our nutrition to see what impact that would have had on our psyche. But the young people must know when they are searching, Donna, for the symbols, they should embrace unapologetically that.
Turn off the phones, please.
Yes, they should embrace unapologetically that the very people who were given that bad card have, as you have said, and others who have done the work, created and gifted to the world 8 genres of music. It's not a joke business. It's not a joke. We talk about it in a kind of glib way. Reggae, dancehall, hip-hop was derived from Jamaican music, and then we move on. It's not a glib thing. That is innovation, and that is creation, and that is a gift to the world, and it's not accidental. It's derived from the national motto, play our part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. So they live in a country with challenges and struggles, but they also live in a country that has a global, cultural, socio-cultural footprint that bears no relation to her size or her age. And that is something that we really ought to celebrate as Jamaicans, unapologetically.
And thanks to the people who are coming or who have come from the KNPs.
Yes. Which indeed, which by the way, Clinton, the other thing we need to say on that to young people who are now watching and who will be watching is this other farce in the country and this false dichotomy that we have created in the country, which is a man like me in a one jacket. I drive one car with my window up, with the AC on, and come to some conclusion about uptown. A Glendevan in a Montego Bay me come from, and 80% of the middle class in this country, where them come from? It must be bush or ghetto. It's a poor country. Where we come from? Where if you turn left, right, center, and straight, doctor, lawyer, teacher, Don, criminal,
Prophet.
prime minister, professor. 80%. No, they're not gone. That's the other thing too. When people talk about our best brains have left, they're here. They're here.
But
and
some-
you know,
some-
No, but I think though,
Some of
I
us
think,
don't remember where we come from.
thank you,
Ah,
Clinton.
well,
No,
true.
not just the remembering,
Yes.
but also the recognition of it. Because a lot of young people looking on wouldn't know where you come from, because this is not something that people are expressing in a lot of ways, very vocally. So there's no connection being made in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And so
yeah, but
there's
that's
a
why.
disconnect.
But that's why I say. That's why I say the discourse. The reason I'm raising this as a false dichotomy is I also don't believe people need to wear that on their shoulder. We should say to our children, this is the country in which you're born. That's the reality. You can, on a balance of probabilities, your prime minister, your MP, honorable this and that, and professor this and that, that's you. You're looking at yourself. They don't need to wear it on their sleeves and print it on their forehead. They are Jamaicans. This is Jamaica. And the reality of the country in which we live is that the vast majority come from what we call the bowels of the people, if you want to put it that way. We're not Issas. Right? So we need to have a real conversation too about this classism and this racism that we're allowing to permeate the country. We need to have real discussions about it. Real discussions about it.
But you know that Cordell, for me the main factor in all of this is that we have not yet unlocked the creativity and power of the Jamaican people.
True that.
The root foundation of black people.
True that.
You know how we see this? Go back, the educational system used to let through one a year. One a year, you get a scholarship to go on, right? Why do so many Jamaicans, ordinary Jamaicans who weren't spectacular here, once they get a chance to go abroad, they become this brilliant? Because our system, now the music industry, with all its achievements, has suffered because of that. No access to capital, no access to developmental factors. So a whole nother issue had to be created. There is a vested interest in keeping the collective strength of Jamaica untapped. And it has not happened. When you see the power of Jamaica, look at the picture of the stadium at Champs. Look at the color of the people and who those people are. When Garvey, so that's why we started out with Garvey, up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. We are nowhere close to that. So the whole issue, and what I mentioned about the issue of now, how you convert emotion to feelings to intellect. Our musicians, the lyrics that were shared, our musicians have done an incredible job of helping us to decode. Yes. So interestingly, my mother was as anti-Rasta as they came. And the first album my mother insisted I must buy for her was Natty Dread. Every time she heard a part of it, I want you to buy that album for me. And I bought it. It's the one album my mother ever asked me to buy for her. Because there's something, and I think somewhere, hopefully in this Groundation discourse, media has to be unpacked in terms of the role that media has played in the continued oppression. Now, with the music, there are very few people who are playing music on radio who have any real sense of music in the brain. They are selectors. Selectors in the narrow sense of the word. When somebody mentioned 8 genres of music as such, most are selectors, and they get in trouble from time to time because the same computer they take to go play a dance, they take it to go play on the radio station and play the wrong version and get in trouble. Don't understand. I find it hard to speak to a mass audience without using music. As I start to hear something, I can't think of a tune and I draw a tune. You draw a big tune and argument done. Because the music bypasses certain aspects and people understand it. So music has done an incredible job. When Marley says, what we know is not what they tell us. We are ignorant, and every time they try to reach us, through political strategy, they keep us hungry. Messages were conveyed. Music is going to teach them a lesson. And there's a critical line from Peter Tosh, which I never forget. Tosh says that many of us were brought from Africa, but some of us were sent. Some of us were sent to remind. There's a wonderful construct called Sankofa. Sankofa, to return and fetch. Return and fetch. Go back to the foundation and fetch. Now, the music has been an instrumental income. It's incredible how the rest of the world, let's take one of the genres, ska. You know how many hundreds of ska bands there are in the world? And to a large extent, we have abandoned ska. Right? There are hundreds of ska bands. I'm glad for what Richard Stevens did. He was invited to front an Italian ska band. Japan has hundreds of ska bands. Jamaica is a big country located on a little island. And we don't understand the totality of that. What our music has done. So all we need is a little break. All we need, when I see, I'm excited about the possibilities now.
So none of my mics are working. Can you hear me now? Yes, thank you very much. You want some water, Donna?
No, I have my water, thank you. But I just
Okay.
wanted to add one thing here in that the conversation that we are having, and we're talking about traditional media, and we're talking about young people, remember that the kind of democratization of access to the technologies that exist, both the hardware and the software, social media and these little things, they are, in a lot of ways, they are cheaper and more accessible. During COVID, we made also a lot of opportunities for individuals to get access to laptops and tablets and all of that, as well as to the internet. The young people are not really logging on to traditional media. They get all their information from social media in the main and the internet, and they pay a lot of attention to it. And also, the way that the musicians of this era are putting their music forward, creating it, producing it, bossing it, sharing it, is through a lot of these portals. So they put it on Instagram and TikTok and blah, blah. They boss, people see them, then it goes on the digital platforms, and people are able to consume it. So there's a kind of dichotomy that has been created, a break between what is here on the ground and what we think we are doing and what my young people sitting in front of me are doing. So we, in a lot of ways, we have to bridge that gap to ensure that the conversations that we are having about the music, when I talk to my young people and say, what is your favorite, who's your favorite artist? The names that are coming up are none of the names that we are talking about in this room. That's the first thing. Bob Marley has become solidified as a national hero for reggae. An international reggae icon. But aside from that, none of the names are being mentioned. So we have to be introducing them to these music forms that you are mentioning to ensure that the knowledge gap is in a lot of ways, sort of at least narrowed significantly. They don't know anything about Burning Spear. They know nothing about the Melodians. They know nothing about the Ethiopians, unless they probably go and sit in a class, the course that Clinton Hutton created in the Department of Government. And that is if they select that course. They know nothing about it. Their parents and grandparents are not introducing them to that music either. So when I give them coursework to do and say, go and ask your father and your grandfather about it, they come back and say, hey, Professor, my father asking me, my father is blushing and asking me why I'm listening to this song.
Right. So do
and
you
these
think...
are part of the conversation that we need to be having
Donna,
because in a lot of ways, this is something that we have to make sure that we are bridging that gap very deliberately with the structures that we have access to, the leadership and power structures.
Donna,
yes.
To respond, I made it clear to my children
Yes.
that I was the program director of my house. I determined what song can play in my house. Now, my daughter Isis is a living example of the product of that. I was the program director. I had a sound system called Judgment. And I made it clear, any song that can play on Judgment can play in my house. And any song that you can't sing it in front of your parents, and your parents say, "Ma, what a wonderful song, can't play in my house."
But Kim, what I heard Clinton Hutton speaking to was the need for a process in our country that would have more equality of access. What I mean by that, you are doing a good job in your house. But the fact is, in the country nationally, most of the homes don't have that level of supervision or direction. So what is occurring for me is the pulling together of what Cordell Green said about poor nutrition. You might not think it's important. What is pulling together is what Orlando Patterson said in his recent lecture, that we are now graduating from primary school. Primary school. Every child graduating from primary school, out of every 2 children, 1 is illiterate. In 1987, the data was saying that we were graduating 52% from high school illiterate and enumerate. So if you're asking for the population to become more rational, more knowledgeable, more understanding, more able to analyze, yes, we can reason, but we're reasoning from intuition. We're not reasoning from knowledge and data, which makes a difference. And when Orlando Patterson spoke about the fact that Jamaica had a Holocaust, have mercy. 6 million souls. He says our population is not 2 million. It's 6 million supposed to be here based on when you track the amount of ships that came here. And he showed it in his lecture. Go look at it on YouTube. The volume of ships was like stars in the heavens. So how are we, team, responding in the matter of fire burning, music, governance, and dance to the Holocaust that has us in a position now where that psychic trauma has not been managed, has not been acknowledged? And the last thing I want to say, Donna, you talk about the reading and nobody has written part of the story. We still have a situation where the Ministry of Education refuses to support people who write in Jamaica and publish. They continue, the Ministry of Education imports all of the books that we use in our schools. How much millions and multi-millions of dollars is that? Because they don't want to pay Jamaican authors. Sorry. So who next?
I have a comment from Professor Carlin Cooper very quickly. Just one comment. She says that a bright student discovered Peter Tosh in her reggae poetry class. She has a course called Reggae Poetry, where she looks at and deconstructs a lot of songs as poetry, but also introducing the students to reggae. This is a final year elective at the university. Again, it's not a compulsory course in a lot of ways. So a lot of our students are coming to an understanding of the music, some kind of way by accident, as final year people almost out of the university. Never knew much about Peter Tosh before that. And Peter Tosh is one of our revolutionaries in the music who deserves to be uplifted in a lot of ways so the young people will understand his contribution.
Yes, when I talk about the most important thing in teaching our students is to develop their capacity for self-education, to become a self-directed learner, to become a sovereign learner, so that they can search for themselves, to deal with one of the weaknesses in our education system while we try to change it. And the education system will not be changed with us sitting down. There are teachers who should not be teaching. I have been in the classroom from age 16 as a teacher. I have heard numerous things. I've heard a teacher telling a student, when the student came into the class, "Look upon you. you come in like old criminal. Police soon kill you. This is what a teacher told a student. Right? And therefore one of the carriers of some of the problems associated with colonialism. Because that's what we are trying to negotiate. That is what we are trying to bury. We are trying to bury colonial thinking, colonial epistemology, colonial ways of knowing and of creating meanings, and a language that will support our journey for freedom, our journey for justice, our journey to describe and to give meaning to our existence.
So on that
Teaching education is not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. That is just a small part of teaching. Right? But we have to teach our students to search. But on top of doing that, we have to introduce things to them. Because if they're not searching, you have to introduce things to them too, to aid them to search. Right? So that I was able, I taught some courses on slavery, on the philosophy of enslaved Africans, on their culture, and how they influence us today. And I played some music, and students in my class cried.
So the question, then, Clinton, is how do we make those courses more public, more available? Because should it be limited to the walls of the university?
No, it should be in the school from the lowest level, appropriately, from the lowest level to the highest level.
Right. So I'm
right. When I teach, my students said to me, almost in unison, "Sir, how come we never know them something there?
Because
how come?"
But gentlemen and lady, isn't it clear that there is a system that is designed to ensure that the people will not know the things that you are talking about?
And it's getting worse because if we start talking about the emphasis of STEM, nothing wrong with STEM, but without the humanities and literature, it's like trying to prepare a meal and you don't have no seasoning. It's the seasoning that gives the meal taste, all right? So that the literature, that's why things like Calabash to me is so important.
Yeah.
Literature, many of us do not impose. You know, the last time, anyone who is not familiar with Jamaican history, Caribbean history, your last chance was history in high school, you know. So that anybody who never read, there was something that Cliff Lashley and myself were trying to do many, many years ago, create a whole construct of cultural literacy for Jamaica. Cultural literacy. What is this body of knowledge that you needed as a Jamaican to use, Nettleford, your Jamaicanness, your smaddiness?
Yeah.
That body of knowledge that gave you that smaddiness.
But you know what you just said, or what I heard you say, is that we're still designing the meals for slaves.
Yes.
We still just want a big fat broad dumpling.
Yes.
And some whole heap of food that give you diabetes and hypertension.
Yes.
And heart disease, which is what killing us off. So the food, the consciousness that you can prepare food, and food is a symbol for feeding the higher self. Right. Yes, brethren. So I wanted to ask now, no, I have nothing to say. Yeah. Right, so where is the microphone? Hold on, okay, thank you. So when you're ready to say something, you know, sit down, because I have to see you. So you have to either hold up your hand, stand up. So I'm going to start including the audience. There's a sister at the back. First, yes?
Georgia Hines.
Hold the microphone close like Hawaii.
Georgia Hines. 100 years ago, Marcus Garvey, did he write all this philosophy and everything? If not he, who did, and why we're not hearing about who put it together, how they put it together, and how it reached here today?
Okay, the book was pulled together beautifully by his wife.
A woman.
A woman, a wonderful woman. She collected, Amy, well, it's two Amy. It's two Amy. It kept it close. She collected all his speeches. All the speeches, everything that he did, she collected them. And the 2nd of February, 100 years ago, she compiled it. But then there were about 6 other books substance that were published. Plus, he had a newspaper called The Black Man. So there's no shortage of material available. But that to me is the single most important. That's the Bible. The philosophy and opinion of Marcus Garvey. It's out there. Walter Rodney also, book is out, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. So it's all required reading, but you're absolutely correct.
And what we are saying is some of these books have to be in the school system. We shouldn't be waiting until you're at university. Sister over here, and then I'll come to the brother. Sister here.
Thank you. I'm a Jamaican living overseas.
Hello.
My name is Ingrid Dixon. The conversation involving donmanship and governance, I think, has strayed a little bit. But I want to say to the curator that I think 2 panelists are missing from this group here, albeit space being limited. We should have had a Don or a former Don to give some perspective from the inside out. It may not happen, but it would have been a great addition, as well as a poet, as well as having a poet, because lyrics, everything we listen to that we're talking about here that influences young minds is all poetry. And I think we have to be wary that every generation has its challenges in the same way we resent the younger people and what they represent. But for a lot of us, especially here in Jamaica, we don't know how the other side lives. We're all a group of perhaps intellectuals. We don't have a lot of people here in this room I'm speaking about who may be the grassroots people. And we need to hear their voices. And often the only way we communicate and hear through them is through the music that comes out of that mantra. So if you just consider that as beyond the socioeconomic, the driving force, yes, but that may be the only means we have to know how the other half lives. Because one of you eloquently said, we are a stratified nation.
Right.
We're this way or we're that.
Right.
And that might be the only means we may have to communicate and relate to the young people. So
Thank you very much.
Let's not to take a little dissension with, we don't need to censor too much.
Thank you very much for that contribution. I want to just say to us, though, and I'm coming to you, Mr. Burke, I'm coming.
No,
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry.
Somebody was before him?
I was there before.
All right, let's not fight. No, hold on a second.
I was there before.
Hold on a second. People, are we going to have a quarrel over who has the mic?
Can I start?
Are we going to proceed
Can I start,
in the
please?
conversation? So 1 second.
Elaine, can
Yes.
I respond just
Please
quickly to
so
that
we want to
comment?
respond here.
Yes, and I'm just saying that dons in Jamaica, many of them from that era, either they are dead or still actively engaged in activities. I doubt that any don or former don would be willing to make themselves available for this kind of open conversation. Because again, a lot of what happened in the 1970s and 80s, many of those individuals are still actively engaged with the society in many ways. They are not going to come and tell on themselves in a lot of ways. And that's an important part of the conversation, though we would have loved to have some of them there. But we have interviewed people, we speak with people, we visit with people, and so we have a clear understanding of many of the things that are happening on the ground and the way that it impacts on people at different levels and the minds of young people as well.
Yeah, I want to just respond to the sister too, to say that, again, I'd like us to bring her challenge to every one of us in the room. Because I remember I lived in New Kingston for a long time, and when I was rearing my family, the eldest child is now 44, so you know. my son Jomo knew the names of everybody in the community. He knew the name of the handcart man. He knew the name of the mentally ill person who was going through our garbage. He knew the garbage men who came by name. And I learned from him how much I had become separated from my own community. So I want to take your challenge now and give it back to you to say, find a Don and talk to them. We can bring them, but I'm also saying, who is in your community that you are not talking to who can give you access? Let us, because that is what the society is doing to us, it's separating us. It is making you and me feel, say, we're not supposed to par because you down so and me up so. That's a lie. We have to mash that down.
Yes.
Yeah. Microphone, let's go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Burke. Now, from last week, I've been saying this thing, but I didn't get a chance to say it. About more than half of the people who are here would have been here 50 years ago to hear the same things that we are saying now. And the question is, what really has happened? Why these things haven't happened? Garvey being taught in school, culture, a different type of way of education, all of the things that have been being said here. Somehow, something has happened. Well, we know that there was 1980, right? And somehow there was a shift at that time. But what seems to be needed now is, in terms of the family and so forth, and in terms of education as well, we need to set up something that is called a review, where you review what you're taught in school and try to add something. I don't know, it can be done to a certain extent in every home, but we need to have a family of people who will allow the young people to learn certain things, right? Because somehow we have been behaving like certain animals where, it's only when you impose a discipline that they know how to behave, and as your back is turned. Because as soon as you let down your hand, all the old colonial, neo-colonial things have come back. All the old ways of doing things have come back. All of that. So somehow we now have to move past the talking stage. There are a lot of people in this room who are as gray as me. Well, I passed gray now. My hair is white. But the thing is, who are as gray as I am, would have been here 50 years ago at some of the things that were being put on in this very room and in other places like the extramural department of the university and other such places that were speaking to these very issues of how we are going to liberate our people and emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, and how we are going to have positive lyrics, all of this type of thing, right? It is nothing new. It's just different people saying it, maybe. But
yes.
We should move on that right now.
May I just...
You want me to tell you what I have done? Don't bother tell me what I can tell you what I have done.
Pass on for me. Yes, Cordell.
Yeah, well...
Thank you, Martin.
Well, I want to say two things to that. Part of what I'd like to put on the table is that whilst we have these concerns and we're talking about young people and they're not in this room, I happen to have a daughter who is 24 years old, in university, very, very active as a youth in groups that are interrogating revolutionary ideas and trying to come to terms with. And by the way, and let me just quickly add that this is not about youth who are in university, because one of the upside of what has happened with the technology is a kind of democratization that is taking place. That's whittling away a lot of divides, believe it or not. So but we have to pay attention to some of what is going on. There are marvelous things going on with young people who are thinking deeply about the world in which we live. A lot of them focused on existential issues such as the environment. But the problem is context. As I said earlier, I propose that, and it's small things that I am proposing because I can't deal with the high-end things too much. I did say digital media and information literacy. And incidentally, I've gone beyond talk. We are at a very advanced stage now of completing a digital media and information literacy skills framework for Jamaica, which we hope to be able to hand over to the government of Jamaica. Because what's going on is that all folks, just a moment, we can talk and talk, all the operating systems of the society are changing. And the very technology that we're talking about here, which is liberating our people, is also the modern form of colonization. Because we are developing closer acquaintance with what we call smart devices. And a lot of the people behind the devices, some of them were called transhumanists, have no interest in our liberation. It's another round of colonization focused on our data. And that conversation is not taking place. We're talking about transitioning to a digital economy and society. We're talking about giving people access to broadband. All of that important, but to do what? And to function in which space? That is one of the most challenging existential issues before us now. And then the last thing I will say about the music and the critique of the current generation is our sister who spoke earlier, who says she lives abroad, made a point that should not be overlooked. There is a way in which some of us romanticize these issues. I really don't know when. Some of you may have had a different experience, but I don't know when there was structured exposure to music education in this country. I went through primary school, high school, university in Jamaica. There was not one class that sought to inspire me and to motivate me about anybody who invented or created music. It's not a big thing. That's why I said music, education, and digital and media literacy need to be elevated as an expression and as a part of our fundamental right to expression and the right to culture.
Thank you, Cordial. Thank you very much. I'm going to take that as your final comment. Is there anything else you wanted to add? We can just, because I'm wrapping up now and I'm going to move to the other panels. I'm coming to you, sir. Cordial, you're complete. Donna, may I have your, no, let me manage. I'd like you to have your last comment. We're clearing the panel. And I am looking for my producer to signal to me who is the person that I need to give the microphone to. Right? So you're waiting. You'll be after Donna. Thank you.
Okay, well, I was waiting for questions to continue
All right,
the conversation.
So let's go for the question.
Yes, I think
let's go for the question. Microphone to your mouth, please.
My name is Enid December, and it's to
microphone to your mouth.
This gentleman here. I've listened to the presentations, and I never get the link between music and the emergence of the Don. What is that link that causes the Don to be involved in the music? I grew up in rural Jamaica in the 60s, and I never hear about Dons until I came to Kingston. What is that link that connects the Don to the music? Thank you.
All right, who is taking that on the panel?
Well, the topic actually says music, governance, and dance. So I think, for me, in my understanding of my Jamaican history, the link is more directly to governance and dance, more, and then the influence of the music as a social commentary baseline in all of that. But Clinton, do you have any insight?
Oh, well, were you talking to me?
No, to the panel.
Okay, all right. I mean, we have a history in Jamaica prior to independence of the development of gangs in Jamaica. The gangs that were developed in Jamaica prior to independence. In fact, I've actually interviewed some of those persons who are most of them are no longer with us. Right? One of the things that came out over and over was that they developed gangs, and one of the main reasons for that was to counteract the colonial police, who were doing unspeakable brutality to them. That's one of the reasons. So you have 1948, thereabout, you have a gang, or 1950, you have a gang called Mau Mau. Right? But the gangs that were used in the early 1960s, in the first government of independence, was one of those gangs called Phoenix. Phoenix was formed before that gang that developed into something called the shower posse. Right? Phoenix was founded before Jamaica became independent. And if we talk about garrison politics, and the building, the housing was used as a main way of keeping and getting votes consistently over a period of time. So garrison became an anti-democratic space. Right? Now, you have heard about the mother of all gangs, garrison, etc., etc. I have actually written about this. In fact, got a prize for it. Right? So we don't have enough time for that. But safe to say that garrison, which emerged in Jamaica and consolidated in Jamaica in the 1960s, and then there was a response to it in the 1970s. Right? And all the mayhem that emerged out of that. And we have some names. Right?
So Clinton.
Zaki the High Priest.
Yes.
Toko Keith.
Yes.
A whole heap of Busby. We have a whole heap of names that can talk about. The fact of the matter is, because there's a denial right now. And what is the denial? The denial is that the violence in Jamaica has nothing to do with what happened in the 1980s.
Okay.
It is rubbish.
I'm going to move us
The foundations of crime, of violence in Jamaica and murder in this time is rooted on what took place with the formation of garrison.
Right. And
the development of gangs as economic organizations.
Clinton, remember now, I am here to manage the time, and we have a set of musicians that are waiting, so I don't want to have to tell them we don't have enough time. So I'm trying to, what I think Clinton Houghton, I see you, Donna, what I think Clinton Houghton just did was to give a signal to Herbie Miller for the next Groundation that we need to take a look at that issue of the 80s, the dance, the whole thing of how that has generated the results that we currently have today and can't even speak to, because much of it, like the information about FinSAC, is hidden.
Elaine, just very quickly, because I think that audience members is trying to kind of tie this together. So remember that the garrisonization, which is also connected to the formation of dons, is located in the same places that Jamaica's music gets its energy from.
Right.
So these people are all involved with each other. So dons are in inner city communities, which are many of them are garrisons, and a lot of the music is coming from these same locations and getting their energies. So if you listen to a lot of the music, for example, dancehall, they'll call out in the songs to the dons in many areas, call out the names of different communities, not just where they are from, but across Jamaica. Because there's a kind of identity locationing of these individuals that they must, in a lot of ways, recognize these communities and also the main power brokers in them, because they are all involved in a lot of ways.
So there's an infrastructure occurring.
The infrastructure, and it cuts across the country,
Right.
not just general locations.
It's something to look at.
And
I want to know if that's your last comment, if you had anything, because I'm wrapping up now.
I'm just wrapping up to say that the conversation, and we have far more to do. I'm talking with Clinton about having a session. But in a lot of ways, we are talking about a world where, yes, the digital divide is there, but we are also being encouraged by the kind of movements of capitalism as an ideological but also an economic project to transform ourselves into products. The monetization of ourselves as culture, as products, and as people. That is also impacting a lot on what is happening in music and how people respond to it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Clinton, short wrap up, please. Or, no, calm yourself a little. Respect, please. Just a short line to wrap, and then we move to Leah Kim, and then I will move to the musicians.
Just to say that we barely scratch the surface. Furthermore, I would urge you to become not angry voices, but conscious voices to change our education system in relation to the philosophy of education. The philosophy of education. That is key to deal with the issue of technology. Each set of technology is not philosophy. Technology is not about the way we think. And therefore, technology can always bring with it the expression of the same colonial mentalities.
Okay.
Right? And therefore, I am talking about the philosophy of education, the way we teach, the science of teaching. I am talking about encouraging young people to read. But to encourage young people, or to use the energies of young people to go into all the type of adventures that they can go into, where learning becomes an adventure that they benefit from, that strengthen their ability to be sovereign and free.
Okay, thank you very much, Clinton. Leah Kim?
This may sound a little, what should I say, well, wrong, but I'm reaching a point where I'm seeing Jamaican is a state of mind, not a place. Jamaica is a state of mind, a way of viewing things, global. Now, my thoughts, I'm seeing a declining significance in this thing called nationalism and patriotism. There's a line from Malcolm X: sitting at a table don't make you a diner. Being born in Jamaica here, it doesn't make you a Jamaican. It didn't privilege you to anything available. There's some people who have everything and some who have nothing. And somebody challenged me, why aren't there more mass demonstration? And I said, because we have the option for mass migration. Many Jamaicans find it's easier to make life outside of Jamaica with your Jamaicanness. And I'm just, as I work with this construct, as a business person now, I have more persons that I am employed outside of Jamaica. I have persons from India, Indonesia, Pakistan, and guess what? It is easier to work with them in terms of the level of training that they have. And there's a wonderful word I've been using since last year, geo-arbitrage. Geo-arbitrage. What you can do with $1 globally and what a Jamaican is asking to be paid here. It can't work. There's a whole other world out there. The persons I can employ from Pakistan, what they ask for with master's degree. So that that's a whole nother discussion we have to start talking about. The globalization of this thing, this Jamaican-ness, and how we can use it to conquer the world.
Thank you very much, Leakim. I appreciate that. We want to just thank the group here with us this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is and will have to be an ongoing conversation, as they have said. My pleasure to have had Cordell Green, Donna Hope, Clinton Houghton, and Leakim Semaj. And as we move from the conversation and presentations, I want to just pause to acknowledge the former executive director of the Institute of Jamaica, who is with us this evening, Vivian Crawford. So good to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, before the panel leaves, we're going to be letting you know the absolute beautiful, wonderful entertainment that is coming up for us now. I'm being handed a flyer. Am I being asked to promote this? Right. So I can do that at the end of the session. Public premiere screening. Gentlemen and ladies, you need to exit the stage so the musicians can come forward, please. Thank you so much. Thank you. A special screening of the award-winning Marcus Garvey documentary. It's called African Redemption, The Life and Legacy of Marcus Garvey by Roy T. Anderson. That film will be shown on Thursday, February 23rd at the University Mona campus, Faculty of Social Sciences, in the lecture theater, and it will be shown between 6:15 and 9 p.m., and admission is free. Discussions by Professor Rupert Lewis, Professor Clinton Hutton, Dr. Michael Barnett, Stephen Golding, Heru Ishaka Musa Menelik, Priest Douglas Smith, Paul Williams, Anya Thompson, and Minister Clive Mohammed. I understand that we're not taking a break. We're going straight into the musical feast that has been prepared for you. And so in that regard, you can see our technicians are placing the microphones where they need to go. So it is my joy to let you know you will be listening to Sounds and Society, Music, Political Activism, and Social Change, as the Jam Ensemble will present to you a number of songs. The songs, Johnny You Too Bad by the Slickers, Up Park Camp, Johnny Clark, Ballistic Affair, Leroy Smart, Right Time, The Mighty Diamonds, Fire Burning, Bob Andy, Beat Down Babylon, Junior Biles, Forward Ever, Jacob Miller, Tribal War, John Holt, Political Fiction, Half Pint, Gunman, Michael Prophet, Everything Crash, The Ethiopians, War in a Babylon, Max Romeo, Green Bay Murder, Tapazuki, and Fade Away by Junior Biles. The Jam Big Band is taking the stage, And on stage for us will be O'Keel McIntyre on trumpet, Everton Sarge Gale on alto sax, Romeo Gay on trombone, Dr. Kathy Brown, digital piano, George Hewitt on guitar, Colin Evans on bass, John Campbell on percussions, Oliver Thompson on drums, Uzoni Sundalia, musical director on keyboards, and to the microphone, guest artist Michael Original Singy Robinson. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy. I'm Elaine Wint, wishing you a wonderful evening because I know you're going to be dancing your way out of here. Blessings abundant, and see you next week when we have Running from Jamaica, Capitalism, Socialism, and Cold War Politics with Michael Witter, Wayne Chen, Pat Chin, and Paul Burke. Ladies and gentlemen, the Jam Ensemble.
Good afternoon, everyone. Clap your hands if you're in the right place. Mr. Lura said, put your hands together. Hallelujah. Greetings. Walking down the road with a ratchet in your waist, Johnny, you too bad. I can hear you. Walking down the road with a pistol in your waist, Johnny, you too bad. You're just stabbing and you're looting and you're shooting, but you're too bad. You're just stabbing and you're looting and you're shooting, but you're too bad. One of these days when you hear a voice say come, who you gonna run to? One of these days when you hear a voice say come, who you gonna run to? You're just stabbing and you're looting and you're shooting, boy, you're too bad. You're just stabbing and you're robbing and you're looting and you're shooting, boy, you're too bad. Walking down the road with your ratchet in your waist, Johnny, you too bad. That's right. Walking down the road with a pistol in your waist, Johnny, you too bad. There's some rhythm there. You're just stabbing and you're looting and you're rooting and you're shooting, boy, you're too bad. You're just stabbing and you're robbing and you're looting and you're shooting and you're too bad. You're just stabbing and you're robbing and you're looting and you're shooting, boy, you're too bad. You're just stabbing and you're robbing and you're looting and you're shooting, boy, you're too bad. You're just stabbing and you're robbing. You're just stabbing and you're robbing and you're looting and you're shooting, boy, you're too bad. You're just stabbing and you're robbing and you're looting, but you know you say you're too bad. You're just stabbing and you're looting and you're shooting, but you're too bad. You're just stabbing and you're looting and you're shooting, too bad. Greetings, people. Clap on yourself. Our music, them, yeah. I was born in 1960 and two or few. And I am still here enjoying all of these things. I have my grandchild out there, a budding student at the Wolmer's High School. And I have to teach these children things. And this is what it's all about, our struggles.
Ronnie.
Yeah. Could I have some microphone out there, please? When I used to go to school, you know they just pull up. Mighty God. Wish you were around, mother, mother. Wish you were around. When I used to go to school, you know they taught me the golden rule. They say, son, you better know yourself, 'cause it's time to come, it's going to be dread. And now me gonna upper camp. Me never want go a upper camp. Now me gonna upper camp. Me never want go a upper camp. Lord knows I would have take your advice if I could have be living in the sky. Lord knows I wasn't born to be wise, and Lord knows I wasn't born to be wise. And now me gonna upper camp. Me never want go a upper camp. Now me gonna upper camp. Me never want go a upper camp. Lord, Lord, no. Wish you were around, mother, mother. When I used to go to school, you know they taught me the golden rule. They say, son, you better know yourself, 'cause in time to come it's going to be dread. And now me gonna upper camp. Me never want go a upper camp. Now me gonna upper camp. Me never want go a upper camp. Lordy, Lordy, no. Lordy, Lordy, no. Wish you were around, mother, mother. When I used to go to school, you know they taught me the golden rule. They say, son, you better know yourself, 'cause in time to come it's rhythm. And now me God, I can hear you. Mighty, now me God, Lordy, Lordy, Lord, Lordy, Lordy, oh yeah. Wish you were around, mother, mother. Wish you were around, wish you were around, mother, mother. BSC, your time, BSC alone, BSC alone. When I used to go to school, you know they taught me the golden rule. They say, son, you better know yourself. I saw your time. It's time to come, it's going to be dread. See ya. Let the music play. yourself. One and I miss me slow. But of course, man, boy, you look lovely. You look like some real Jamaican people. I say, all the bridge, you know what they say, skank, you know. Good thing that. I wish you all around the get up on the seat and go and skank. Play the music. One more time. Ballistic affair. Tell you, my brother. Ballistic affair. We used to lick Charlie's cook idol stew together. Play football and cricket like one brother. Not to you rest a jungle, and you might block a rima. You are gonna fight against your brother. That no right, my sister. Let us all live as one. Well, throw away the gun, throw away the knife. Let us all unite. Everyone is living in fear. Just do this ballistic affair. Ballistic affair. Tell you about this stuff. Miss Bird, big up. Ballistic affair. Mrs. Bird. Throw away your gun, throw away the knife. Let us all unite. Everyone is living in fear. Just do this ballistic affair. Not to you rest out at the east, and you might rest out west. You are God said, you are the best ballistic affair. Tell you about this, yeah. Ballistic affair. Ballistic affair. Ballistic affair. Ballistic affair. Whoa. Ballistic affair. Ballistic affair. Ballistic affair. Show away your gun, show away the knife. Let us all unite. All right then. These songs were made popular by the Mighty Diamonds. Naughty dread will never run away. No, 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 no. The dread will never run away. Oh God. Hear me now. Marcus Garvey prophesied, say, oh yes, man, I go fighting back against the wall one day. It's a go bitter when the right time comes. Some a go ball for murder, and when the right time comes, some a go ball for arson, and when the parson comes, some a go run till them tumble down, and when the lawman come, you a go run till you tumble down. So all of field I go be now, yeah, the battlefield, yeah, oh yeah. Now she said we'll never run away, no my brother, she will never run away. This year a prophecy, this year a prophecy. Holy Marcus, and when the right time comes, some a go born for arson, and when the right time comes, some a go ball for murder, and when the parson come, him a go quote the scripture, and when the lawman come, you a go run till them tumble down. So all the battlefield, feel, yeah, oh yeah. Nothing's ever never run away. No, my brother. This year a prophecy. This year a prophecy. And when the right time come, some are gonna run till them tumble down. When the right time come, them a pick up. And when the lawman come, you are gonna run till you tumble down. And when the person come, him a go put the scripture. Swallow feel, I go be, yeah, the battlefield, feel the battlefield, yeah, oh yeah, battlefield, feel, battlefield, yeah, oh yeah, feel, battlefield, battlefield, yeah. All right. I was drowning myself, observing all this time. Pull up! Hip, hip, hip! Hip, hip, hip! Hip, hip, hip! Hip, hip, hip! These songs must be recognized. Our society must be recognized. I was drawn into myself, observing all this time. From every angle that I see, my people, they're meeting hell. Brothers have turned to crime, so they die from time to time. We'd like to ask you leaders, what have you got in mind? I see the fire spreading, it's getting, my gosh, the hounds will wanna be in the shoes of the have-nots. If the sign is on your door, then you will be safe for sure. But if you are in pretense, you're on the wrong side of the fence. You better get ready, because believe me when I say everything I see in my visions right before my eyes. Sisters prostituting, selling away their lives. They get so very little pay from the ones who clean the mess. Minority just sits on top, rate themselves the best. But I see the fire spreading, people getting hotter and hot. Well, hot hands will wanna be in the shoes of the have-nots. If the sign is on your door, then you will be safe for sure. But if you are in pretense, you're on the wrong side of the fence. Fire burning, 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 feel the fire burning. Whoa, whoa. Burning, 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 feel the fire burning. La da da da. Fire burning, 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 feel the fire burning. Fire burning, fire burning, burning, fire burning. All right then, clap on yourself again. Just on a point of interest, could you be quiet, please? Beg your pardon. I'd love to hear myself. Wonderful. Point of interest, you see them tuning on, you them have played too much place now. Shots of mine. Yeah. Catch that one now. Say me no like them kind of Babylon. Say me no dig them kind of wicked men. But I'm a righteous Rasta man, and I am a dread Naya man. I beat down Babylon. I beat down Babylon. I and I whip the wicked men. I and I whip them wicked men. Oh, what a wicked situation. I and I start the revolution. If at fault is my revision, cause I am a dread Rasta man. I and I beat down Babylon. I and I beat down Babylon. I and I whip them wicked men. I and I whip them wicked men. Whip them, Lord, whip them. Whoa, it's a whip them now. Whip them, the boys. Oh, what a wicked situation. I and I start the revolution. If I cause a revolution, it's just because I'm a judge Rasta man. I and I beat down Babylon. I and I beat down Babylon. I and I whip them wicked men. I and I whip them. Lord, whip them. Whoa, whip them. Lord, whip them. Let the music play. Muchas gracias, mi amigas. Hola. Bye. I've got the top ranking sound, going to match the town. So gather the people from around, come listen to this here sound. I miss sing them songs of culture. I miss sing them songs of love. Sing them songs of culture. Sing them songs of love. Forward ever and a backward never. Forward ever and a backward never. A backward never. A backward never. Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. Call the people to unite, teaching them not to fight. Manners must turn to discipline. That's what we do when we tell our children. Sing them songs of culture. Sing them songs of love. Sing them songs of culture. Sing them songs of love. Forward ever and a backward never. Forward ever and a backward never. A backward never. A backward never ever. Sing it, calling people to unite, teaching them not to fight. Manners must turn to discipline. That's what we do when we teach our children. Sing them songs of culture. Sing them songs of love. Sing them songs of culture. Sing them songs of love. Forward ever and a backward never. Forward ever and a backward. A backward. A backward. Sing it, So we give thanks. Let me give this group of musicians a wonderful and a rapturous applause. Marvelous. Yeah, Jamaica still full of nice people, hear that? Oh, look what happened. Tribal war. We no pull up. Brand new music, this can't play the moment. Trying to think on the sky of war. Lord of mercy. Oh, look what's happening. Yeah. Sing, people. Tribal war. Beautiful. We no want no more at all. Not at all. Tribal war. Yeah. I know that we are defend. Mighty God. Joe! I sing your praises in the morning. Then I hear some people say, we just sipping up and licking cup. One by one they get a little sup. Now that the war is over, no more war. Tribal war, yes. I know that we are defend. See ourselves in unity, celebrating with better cali weed. Now that the war is over, no more war. Greetings in the name of power music. Yeah. Crowd of people sing coming up, tribal war. People, tribal war. I can hear you, come and hear you. We know one what a beautiful nation, full of beautiful people. Tribal war again. Tribal war, yes. I know that we are defend. Mix me down. We now see ourselves in unity, celebrating with better cali weed. Now that the war is over, no more war, no more war. We now see ourselves in unity, celebrating with better cali weed. Now that the war is over, war is over, war is over. Crowd of people sing tribal war. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tribal war, people. Tribal war. We don't want no more. We don't want no more at all. Not at all. Tribal war. Yeah. I know that we are defend. to be conscious. Whoa, whoa, we got to pull up, pull up. Hear me now, brothers, in this time, we've got to be conscious. Whoa, whoa, we got to be conscious. Baseline. Due to political fiction, Lord, due to political fiction, man and man gone in a different segregation. Due to political fiction, Lord, due to political fiction, man and man gone in a different segregation. You can't go uptown, me say, you can't go downtown. If you slip or slide, your blood will run on the ground. It's a pity in the city, Lord. It's a pity in the city, whoa. But due to political fiction, Lord, due to political fiction, man and man gone in a different segregation. Ba-da-ding-ding, wah, ding-ding, wah. Ba-da-ding-ding, wah, ding-ding, wah. The breaking of family ties, separating husband and wife. It's a pity in the city, Lord. It's a pity in the city, Lord. But due to political fiction, due to political fiction, man and man gone in a different segregation. Ba ding ding boy, ding ding boy, la da da da, da ding ding boy, ding ding boy. Breaking up family ties, separating husband and wives. It's a pity in the city, Lord. It's a pity in the city, Lord. But due to political fiction, due to political fiction, man and man gone in a different segregation. Ba-da-ding ding boy, ding ding boy, la da da da, ding ding boy, ding ding boy. Ba-da-ding ding boy, ding ding boy, la da da da, ba-da-ding ding boy, ding ding boy. Hear me now, brothers. Hear me now, brothers. All right. Yeah. And it be like that sometimes because we're so emotional with this music. It just drives us to do some things, you know what I'm saying? Love to see people out there dancing. Wonderful thing, because that's the part of the thing too, you know, 'cause if you can't feel the vibes or the spirit, you can't move. Well, I want you to tell you right now, them murderous, destructive weapons that we have here, I don't know how we'll get rid of them. Whoa, yeah. I wake up in the morning, what do I see? Gunmen standing over me with their guns, and they pull out. Whoa, yeah, whoa, yeah. I wake up in the morning, what do I see? Gunmen standing over me with their guns and their baby. They cry, oh man, the wicked I go feeling. Boy, booby boy. Me say boy, booby boy. It was the savior of my life that looked over me, that saved me. Oh Lord, it was the savior of my life that looked over me. Ooh-wee, Lord God, from gunmen standing over me with their guns and their baby. They cry, oh man, we wicked like a female. Oh man, we all are revealed. Boy, baby boy. Boy, baby boy. Yeah. Woo! world is confused, they don't know what to do. The world is confused, they don't know what to do. Listen to me from the headline news, a gunman standing over me with their guns. And they baby, they cry, oh man, the wicked have a feeling. Oh man, we all are feeling. Boy, baby boy. Boy, baby boy. Whoa, yeah. Whoa, yeah. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. So we give thanks. And that is what we're here to do. Give thanks unto the Lord. Give thanks to the love of music. And for the Most High Himself, isn't it? How are y'all doing out there today? Wonderful. As the brethren say, wonderful. But feeling wonderful is really feeling. Praise God. Waterman strike, telephone company too, down to the policeman too. Whoa, we're gone by the morning, can't come to the evening. Whoa, we're gone by the morning, can't come to the evening. Whoa, everything crashed, Lord. Everything crashed. Look there now. Everything crashed. Lord. Look there now. Everything crashed. Fireman strike, waterman strike, telephone company too, down to the policeman too. Whoa, Lord God, gone by the morning, can't come to that. That's right. We're gone by the morning, can't come to that. Everything crashed. Everything crashed. Hear that piece, you know. Every day, me say bucket go a well. One day the bucket bottom must drop out. Oh, the day me say bucket go a well. One day that part couldn't left out. Hear that? Huh. Everything crashed, Lord. Everything crashed, Lord. Everything crashed. Everything crashed. Yeah. It was a beautiful thing this morning when the king wake we up. We sure wouldn't be out here giving thanks like this. Young, old, middle-aged, and the ones who are wanting to be knowledgeable. We are here to impart all of this. Because this is the beauty of Jamaica, this music. You get me? Clap on yourself. Yes.
Run the track. It's people out there. Again. It's people out there.
You hear that? It's people out there. It's people out there. One more time. It's people out there. Play the tune. It's people out there. You hear me now, son? War in a Babylon. Tribal war in a Babylon. Lord gosh. It's people out there. Oh Lord. It's people out there. War in a Babylon, people. War in a Babylon right now. Tribal war in a Babylon. It's people out there. Oh Lord. It's people out there. Rastaman. Babylon don't like the dreadlocks. Dreadlocks don't like the barber man. Babylon keep fighting dreadlocks. Say that the dreadman come change his plan. Lord, war in a Babylon. Tribal war in a Babylon. It's people out there, oh Lord. It's people out there. War in a Babylon. Tribal war in a Babylon. It's people out there, oh God. It's people out there. Marcus Garvey prophesied, say, man, I go find problem long one day. Babylon don't like the Rasta man, yeah. Cause the Rasta man change his plan. Lord, war in a Babylon. Tribal war in a Babylon. It's people out there, oh Lord. It's people out there. War in a Babylon. Tribal war in a Babylon. It's people out there, oh Lord. It's people out there. Babylon don't like the dreadlocks, man. Dreadlocks don't like the Babylon. Him say Rasta man to change his plan, whoa. Cause you know him is a one-away man, Lord. War in a Babylon. Tribal war in a Babylon. It's people out there, oh Lord. It's people out there, Lord. War in a Babylon. War in a Babylon. It's people out there, oh Lord. It's people out there. War in a Babylon. War in a Babylon. Babylon. It's people out there. It's people out there. War in a Babylon. Give thanks. Both of us go and praise the Most High and give thanks for all things great and small, and even for nothing at all. Musical Shanka Tank, I play the on track. Musical Shanka Tank to make you jump and twist. Musical thing called the Green Bay Murder. Lord of mercy. A murder. murder, a murder, a murder, a murder, a murder, a murder. Green Day killing, a murder, a murder, a murder. But if you run onto the rock and you will joke by your top, you crawl like a sailor, you will joke by your nail. You kill the poor man and then you shoot him down. A murder, a murder. I miss a Green Day killing, a murder. Lobo, oh Lobo. And this a one we are gonna push it a little further. Lobo, oh Lobo. The wicked have to run, the wicked have to run. The wicked have to run, and when the right time come, the wicked have to run, the wicked have to run, the wicked have to run, and when the right time come. A murder, a murder, a murder, a murder, a murder, a murder. Matter what you do, no matter what you say. Musical shackles I can play them on the way. Hip and skip and move and groove, I will tell it to you. A murder. A murder, a murder. The boys, me say no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, me say no matter what you say. So listen to the bandit and the boss it a play. A murder, a murder. Hear me now. Green Day killing, a murder. Oh, oh Lord, we are gonna push this one leg of murder. Oh Lord. See, come if you sad and if you lost, you love your hand. Bow down on your knee and then you pray to Master God. A murder, a murder, a murder. Lord, say Green Day, a murder, a murder. The killing of an innocent man. The killing of a Rasta man. The killing of an innocent man. The killing of a Rasta man. A murder, murder, a murder, a murder. Hip and skip and move and groove. Let's get this guy play them on the track. Muchas gracias a usted, mi amigas. All right, I thank you all. It's beautiful. It's marvelous. Yeah. Mosai. Ready, about. Tequila one, you know. Yeah. One for the road. You seeks of only vanity and no love for humanity shall fade away. Pull up! Mighty God is moving like a vibrant magnet. Yeah, Lord of mercy. You seeks of only vanity and no love for humanity shall fade away, fade away. He who checks for only wealth and not for his physical health shall fade away. What I say. Though some believe in diamonds and pearls and feel like they're on top of the world, they shall fade away, fade away. Right, yes, sir. The rich is getting richer every day, and the little that the poor man's got, it shall be taken away. Do you hear what I say? Yeah, hear what I say. some believe in diamonds and pearls and feel like they're on top of the world. They shall fade away. Hear what I say. The man who's always acting smart and forget to carry love in his heart shall fade away. Right, yes, sir. God is here and there and everywhere. I know when you play the game unfair, so people beware, or then you fade away. Yeah, beware, yeah, or then you fade away. You gonna fade, gonna fade, gonna fade now. Yeah, fade away. Beware, yeah. Brother, what you got shall fade away. Fade away. One more bridge. The bridge is getting richer every day. And the little that the poor man's got, it shall be taken away. Do you hear what I say? Yeah, hear what I say? Yeah, beware, or then you fade away. You're gonna fade, gonna fade, gonna fade now. Fade away. Yeah, beware, shall fade away. Fade, fade. Put your hands together for the musicians. We only got together for a few days to put all of this here together. Clap the singers and the instrument players. Yeah. Clapping yourself for being so wonderful. And this is where we say, until next week, God's willing, Most High. Then you fade away. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone. Powers of the Most High be with you all.